passive income? Because recently I had a friend asking me, I'm receiving money from a company that I made in Bali, and I do, I don't know, modeling. Does that count as passive income? How do you explain to somebody that has never heard that before what passive income is?
Well, basically, it's everything that is not from a working agreement directly, or as a freelancer that is, having clients and providing service in an individual way, individually and having clients and providing services as an individual. Now, this is the more what we call active income. Now, there's a trick here. If there is a company doing consultancy business, for example, which in fact could be followed, on an individual basis, but when it's organized as a company, usually because there are more clients or because it's a bigger, usually there is some kind of reason to incorporate companies. So when is the company involved, that person that owns the company can receive those incomes as dividends. So it's not as a salary necessarily.
It's not an active work.
But dividends are already classified as passive income. Is the results of a company that that person might own.
Today in the D7 program, is passive income the only source of income accepted in order to get it?
It's the one that all the embassies and all over the world is more acceptable. But no, to answer your question, especially after the pandemic, the embassy started to allow processing clearly active income. So people, remote workers that wanted to move and live in Portugal and have had a residency in Portugal, and this is the key, is having a residency in Portugal when they start the application, and that has to be a long-term residency. And because of that, the D7 also we started to work with the D7 for active, for active income, which is a remote worker, either a freelancer or working for a company.
I'm a remote worker. Do you think that the D7 is a good avenue for me to come to Portugal?
Well, the good news, we didn't have anything else. We only had either Schengen, which is usually for 90 days, as you know, or D7 to work with. But there was something missing, clearly, for digital nomads. For those who are really willing to, to be around the world, be some months in a country, some months in the other. They don't necessarily want to be a resident in a specific country. They want to be in different countries and moving. The typical digital nomads. So the digital nomads, for those digital nomads, finally we have a new visa which was really created for digital nomads and remote workers, and it will be in place by the end of September. So it's already published, the law, so it is a change in our immigration law, and it will be in place more or less in 1 month, which is, that will be wonderful, because that will be more adapted and the right visa for digital nomads.
So what I gather, you correct me if I'm wrong, what I gather so far is that we have the D7 program that you mentioned, that the purpose of it is to establish residency, a long residency in Portugal, right? And then we have this other program that is going to be soon passed into law, or is the law already, you said? The law is already passed, or
yeah, it's passed, published. Now it's only on what we call vacation.
Okay.
It will be in place in 1 month.
Okay, so one allows me, the new one allows me to come here for a short period of time. D7, the purpose is to establish a long residency.
Correct.
Right.
You can be this new visa, digital nomad visa, can be issued up to 1 year. So you can be here for 11 months. And
or less. What is the minimum?
Or less. There's no minimum there. I mean, you can apply when you apply.
Well, I would imagine the minimum is less than the Schengen visa, right?
Yeah,
So
and they not use, more than the Schengen visa, because up to 90 days they will have the Schengen visa, and it will be enough. So for those who want to be more than 90 days but less than, and not become a resident in Portugal, but they want to live in Portugal.
But okay, I think some people are going to think, well, but why do I need a visa if I'm going to stay only 3 months, right? I could just go as a tourist.
Exactly, that's a Schengen. That's a Schengen.
That would be a Schengen.
That would be a Schengen.
I would imagine that if I do that, if I say, okay, I'm just going to go to Portugal and spend 3 months with the Schengen, I'm going to use my Schengen allowance, right? If
Correct.
I come with that.
Correct.
But if I come with this, either the D7 or
Yes,
if I
it's
come with
only
the,
for Portugal.
it's
Yeah.
only for Portugal,
Yes.
so I wouldn't be burning.
You wouldn't be burning.
my-
I mean, you wouldn't even be using a Schengen. You wouldn't need a Schengen.
Right, that's something that I think people should know.
Yes, you wouldn't need a Schengen. Yeah,
Mhm.
correct. It's a residency. It's a
And
residency visa.
What does it mean to establish a long residency here?
Well-
What are the requirements of residency?
The requirements of residency, we always have to prove that that person, as I said, will not be a burden to the country. Meaning, there is some regular income coming to on a monthly basis. That would be wonderful. But there are some people that they work on projects and different projects, but at least have an average of a year of income.
The period that they're going to be looking into is a year.
Yes, we already had clients who, they don't have necessarily, because they have their own business, so they don't have necessarily the same amount of income coming every month, but they have an average of a year of the company, so they can prove that they will not be a burden to the country.
Because when I did my D7, they asked me for 6 months. Now, it was
That's
my
another
prerogative.
thing. That's another thing.
Okay, because I gave them a little over a year because I just wanted to be on the safe side, right? But they asked for 6 months.
Yes, that's the bank statements that they ask you to, and that's something different. So the bank statements, yes, 6 months will be enough. But if you have like pay slips or invoices and you can prove clearly that every month you are receiving more than enough money to live in Portugal, that's okay.
On an average.
More than what I say, more than the 700. More than minimum salary in Portugal.
Yeah, but I mean, on an average over a period of time.
Yes.
If let's say out of the year, in 2 months I had no income because I'm a consultant. 2 months out of the year, I didn't have an income, but all the other months.
Yes, so that's the average will help you, of course. That's
so
what I'm saying.
Fine. I shouldn't be worried.
You shouldn't be worried, and that's why we can use the tax return, for example, if there are tax returns of the company, of your own company, and prove that that was the average.
And if I'm a consultant and I'm just a private person doing consultancy, would that my personal tax return be?
Yes, it will be. It will help. It would be helpful as long as we just need to prove that you, on an average per month, you have enough money to live in Portugal. And don't forget that you need, every applicant of a residency has to transfer at least 1 year of minimum salary upfront to Portugal. Upfront.
Into a Portuguese
Portuguese bank account. So that means there is already here 1 year of minimum salary, correct? Okay. And so the other, will keep on coming in. So going back to the residency requirements, we need to prove that there is regular income. We need to prove that there is a residency, a long-term residency. So at least 1 year of a lease agreement for a residency, if it's not, purchased a property. And there are some cases that we can also work with what we call a right of use of a property, or a friend or a family member that signs an agreement for 1 year. But the important is the term. So it has to be at least 1 year of residency. So that proves and shows that there is a residency, there is a will to move to that country, and the intention has to be the applicant's primary residency. If there is a family, if he has a family, he or she has a family and children and spouse, they should all come to Portugal, in order to, to prove that that's their primary residency. Now, this is for the application itself, but it's important to all those who are willing to do this residency program to know and to be aware that what the law states is the maximum time out when you get a resident permit in Portugal. Nowadays, and since 2020, when you applied, so each applicant will get 2 years residency, and then you will be able to renew for 3 years residency. In each period of time, it's only possible to be out of Portugal 8 months without any justification.
8 months total in 2 years?
In 2 years, and total in 3, because when it renews is 3. So in each term, what the law still states, our immigration law, it's that it's possible to be out up to 8 months, and it cannot be more than 6 in one row. So up to 8 without any justification. But of course, if there is a justification, which the law considers to be a justification, like a family issue, emergency, a social event that you have to attend, and professional reasons. Now here, the professional reason is can be a workshop or doing some work for a company that did some agreement with the residence company, something like that. So he or she needs to justify to the authorities, to the immigration, why is he being, or he or she is being out.
But if I'm thinking of my own case, right? So if I'm doing consultancy and I think that I might be able to get some new clients if I make a trip abroad, right?
Correct. That's
a valid.
Yeah,
even
valid.
if
Absolutely.
I'm procuring new clients, right? It's not like a
but it's part of your. But it's part of your what you do.
But
and you want to
the
promote.
only entity issuing that, I imagine, like a letter to state what is my purpose of the purpose
Would
of the
be
trip.
your own
it would be
entity.
my own entity, right?
You
is
will
that
need.
all right?
You will need to justify. There's nothing in our law, stating in very, precise manner how can you justify.
Okay.
You need to justify that it's for professional reasons. You can justify that you're promoting your own services somewhere, getting new clients. It's part of our business. It's an international business. As long as there's logic in what you're saying,
right.
yes, you can justify.
So it's not like a dry and cut kind of analysis that if there is not a letterhead from a company stating that you are going there because of external reasons, that's the only. It's as long as it makes sense.
Yes, as long as it makes sense. What we usually do, and this is to help in terms of formal, like even when when we have new clients coming in, and they have their own company, and they want to, have a statement of their own company of how much they earn and what is their function for different purposes, can be even for the bank account opening. What we usually do, and has been accepted, is we use the letterhead, as you were saying, letterhead, but he does it with his own letterhead and does some kind of stamp. Sometimes, if it's for financial purposes, it can be the accountant signing, depending on the purpose.
So when we're talking about the first period of 2 years, not more than 8 months abroad, right? I can, for the right reasons, I can reduce it by demonstrating that my trips were because of business.
Yes, so correct. So you can reduce your minimum stay in Portugal if you can prove. But don't forget, this I'm always advising and reminding clients, you need to always justify.
Okay.
Send an email, notify the immigration. Why are you getting?
So at the end, is not more than 8 months abroad without a professional reason.
Exactly, without any reason. So
okay, so it's like basically don't take a vacation longer than 8 months abroad.
Or something like that.
All right.
Or something.
And it's the same then after for the renovation?
Yes, in each period it's exactly the same. The D2 is a residency visa very similar to the D7. The difference is that it's not for those who can prove that they have regular income coming in, but for those who are entrepreneurs, even a freelancer, but as an entrepreneur they have their own, and they want to have their business based in Portugal. So they need to prove that they have a very basic business plan. Usually they incorporate a company in Portugal and they will provide services from Portugal. But all the minimum stay is exactly the same as a D7. And of course, and they also have exactly the same time frame, and they can also justify for professional reasons when they're getting out. I know that the D2 is being marketed out as like a more free a visa than the D7 because he's an entrepreneur, and that means he can travel a lot and get out. So there's almost no minimum stay in Portugal. Not true. The law is exactly the same. It's exactly the 8 months. I always recommend, even for those who are doing D2, if they have family, please bring your family. This has to be your primary residency.
Include them in the
Include them.
process.
And of course, then go, if you need for professional reasons, if your company has agreements with other companies all over the world and you have to be out a lot of times on business, you can.
Because that makes it look like your intent is to actually establish residency in Portugal.
And you need to, it's very important is because these are residency programs.
Can I come or bring family with the D7 then?
Yes, D7 and D2. Yes,
and then what would be the requirement? Because I
marriage,
marriage,
marriage, or what we call união de facto. That means, people that are living together and they can prove that they've been together for more than 2 years, if they get some kind of document or through an entity or a local entity, if it's a public entity, even
yes,
better.
I understand that some countries recognize that
the relationship.
Kind of union.
For more than 2 years, we need to, like bank statements having together. If they have a house elsewhere, they've been living there for some reason, they can prove.
The financial requirements would be different, though.
Because this is how you classify as a family member. So what I'm saying is, whoever it can be those who are married to the main applicant, those who live as a couple. With the main applicant, the children, and even parents.
But the financial requirement,
and if they adopt a child
as a single person, the financial requirement would be a year worth of minimum.
That's for the main applicant. Then for the spouse or for the partner, it should be 50% of the minimum. Of the minimum salary.
1.5 times the total, right?
Yes, 1.5 because 50% would be for your spouse. And if you have children, it's more 30% of the minimum salary per child.
All right.
Okay,
that's D7.
That's D7 or D2.
The overall picture of my presentation should make sense then.
Exactly.
So if there is one little dent here or there, maybe I shouldn't worry too much that it's not going to be approved?
Yeah, I mean, there is what the law states as a minimum requirements, but there is always, as I said, discretionary power for some reason, to decide whether it's that person will not be a burden or is a risk or not. And so there is always I always say the only that is more mathematics, because you do something you will get it, is the residency by investment, because you do the investment, that's done, as long as it's an investment that is eligible for, like the Golden Visa program. All the other programs have always some uncertainty, and especially depending where the applicants are coming from, their background, and we know that there are some, as I told you, some embassies are a little bit more demanding than the others in terms of.
So probably wherever I am from, then I should contact my embassy and get a picture from them on what they are asking.
Yeah, they always have that, If you go to the embassy site, you will see that. But that is the minimum. What they have and what you will see is the minimum requirements.
All right, because when I was Googling to get the information, right, I'm from Chile. So most of the information was based on experience from Americans that apparently are in love with Portugal now, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that was the requirements for Americans. I knew that there had to be some differences in the process. So from a small country in the worldwide view, like Chile, it was harder for me to know the specifics. So I contacted the consulate in Chile, and they helped me through. They were very nice. But I noticed that there were some discrepancies. They were asking for things that other consulates in other countries would not ask. And I got in this keyboard fights with other people, because I was telling them, hey, look, this is the information I'm getting from my consulate. I'd rather believe my consulate than other countries' experiences. And they were saying, no, you need to prove this and that. And I was like, the consulate is telling me these are the requirements. I'm going to believe them.
My answer to you would be, well, if you want to search, you did very well. You have to search and follow where you're going to start, where you're going to submit your application, because there's differences, yes.
So, well, I did it. I knew that I wasn't sure, but I read that I had to be in my country to apply for the D7. So I went back to Chile and applied and submitted everything.
And were you
Chile.
Legally resident in the country where you were back then?
Well, back then I had just gotten out of the United States. My visas were over, so I got out of the United States, and then I went back to Chile. Well, then. Obviously,
now, what the law states is that you can apply from your country of citizenship, but you also can apply from the country where you have a legal residency. So if you have a legal residency in another country, yes, you can apply from that. And we have many clients applying from other countries.
What should anybody seeing this video understand for legal residency?
Legal residency is having a resident permit or at least a residency visa. There are some countries. We had clients who they still didn't hold like the resident permit, but they already had the residency visa stamped. So they were legally in that country.
So let's say I'm not from Europe, but I'm I'm planning to be in Europe for 3 months. That means that I cannot apply from those countries in Europe. So if I'm visiting Europe,
visiting,
and
but
I'm
you're
there
not
as
just
I'm
on a
tourist.
tourism. No, you cannot apply that.
All
Only
right.
if you have a residency visa.
So anywhere
permit.
where I have a permit to stay other than tourism.
It's a residency. It's clearly different.
All right.
It's a difference. It's not tourism.
And then I have to go to the Portuguese embassy or consulate.
On that country, or the VFS office, which is now, VFS has been, it's been, nowadays it's everywhere. So it's our government in an agreement with the company that is providing services not only to Portugal, but also other countries as well. And so what they're doing, they are receiving all the applications. They are the ones sending it to the embassies and dealing with the embassy.